It's good to be here with you. Appreciate all of you coming out. Jack, I just want to thank you for what you've done over the years to recognize our veterans and what I know you're going to continue to do for many years to come. My dad passed away 10 years ago at the age of 86. He never talked about the war a whole lot until his last 18 months. And I spent quite a bit of time with him by his bedside during those 18 months. But on December the 5th of 1941, he left San Francisco in the belly of a ship. Didn't know exactly where he was going. Pearl Harbor on the 7th was attacked. They rerouted them to Pearl Harbor. He got there a few days later and told me a lot of things that he saw. Then his job was with a reconnaissance unit that they flew reconnaissance in a little Piper Cub airplane, and he described that plane to me, and I'd never flown in one. Just a few days after his death, out at the Elmore Airport, they had an air show, and I was walking around looking at this little Piper Cub military plane, and it looked exactly like what my dad had described to me. And a gentleman walked up, Dan Horton, and this plane belonged to Dan, and he asked me why was I interested in that plane. So I told him, and he asked me if I'd like to go for a flight in the plane, and we did. It's quite interesting I knew how to get in that plane because my dad had told me so much about it. I knew how you had to pull yourself up in there. It was a two-seater. Dan was flying the plane from behind me. I looked at the windshield in these planes, and I have a knife at home that my dad made a handle for a knife out of one of the windshields of one of those planes. So I called my brother when I got back on the ground, and I said, "You won't believe what I've just done." It was like being there myself and experiencing the things that my dad experienced during World War II. He also shared with me about their job was they'd have these planes on a landing craft, and they'd go from island to island. They would pull up, first thing off of that landing craft was a Jeep pulling that reconnaissance plane that had the wings folded up and laying on top of it. Then they'd have to reassemble the plane, find them a strip somewhere, and start flying those missions off of those islands. Then he told me about standing on the island one day, and as they would clear the Japanese off the islands, they'd move to another island. And he told me about standing there one day with a buddy of his and talking with his buddy, and all of a sudden he felt something wet hit him upside his face. And he didn't know what it was, and he looked up and saw it was blood, and he turned to his buddy next to him, and he had been shot through the head. You know, I wasn't there. So many of you were, and so many of you have friends that's been a part of this type of activity in the war. A few months ago, I had an opportunity to travel to Washington, D.C. with a group of World War II veterans. It's probably the highlight of my years to get to be a part of an event such as that. I hope we can carry some more flights to Washington. There's still people that did not get to make the trip. But when we stepped off of the airplane at the terminal there, and the bands were playing, and people that we did not know applauding and thanking these veterans for their service. And when I saw little children come up to veterans throughout that day and shake their hands and ask for their autographs. This was a recognition that these men had never received before. And I'll never forget that experience, that what I saw on that one day that I was allowed to spend with heroes. And that's exactly what these people are. They're heroes. And the ones that are serving today are heroes. A couple of months ago, we had an opportunity to bring a group of wounded warriors here to Wetumpka. When I was told they wanted to come to Wetumpka, I said, okay, what can we do for them? They said, we want to go canoeing and kayaking in the river. And I thought, you have lost your mind. Some of these people didn't have legs or arms or whatever, all types of injuries. Councilman Carter worked alongside of us, and other people worked alongside of us to make this a reality. And it was a great, great day. But when a gentleman took off 2 titanium legs and handed them to me and said, now I expect these to be down at the other end when we get down there. It was great for me to get to carry his legs. But people, we need to keep doing events such as this. We need to honor the ones who have given so much for our country. Thank you again for being here.